We are in a polarized society, which is not good. It's good for the politics. It's great if you keep your crowd polarized and antagonistic to others, because then they're close to you. Strategically, long term, it's like shooting yourself in your foot.
Yeah.
And with the digital era, we kind of lost certain morale barriers. I see that the morale is kind of falling. We need to return to what does it mean to love first. Love doesn't mean that you allow everybody to do anything they want. You can do anything, but not everything is good for you. The future is gonna be the way we make it. We can cooperate. We don't have to fight each other. We can think what we can help each other with. So I think we are at the moment of innovation mentality. And I think that's what art is bringing. Unity actually benefits us all. Wherever you do something for the others, you actually benefit the most. First of all, it transforms yourself, but also you bring added value to the whole community. We know this term servant leaders. We need to bring back serving the people.
What has caught your attention and inspired you, and why are you a part of the ARC movement?
Well, first of all, I get invited by the good friend of mine now, Gudrun Kugler, but I actually started to follow the vision, and I very much like the motto of a better story. I think it's so important to really have not just hope, but belief and faith for a better story. I myself am a follower of Jesus. I became his follower at the age of 23, so basically adult. And he totally transformed my life. I mean, it was a complete innovation of my mindset, and he brought the hope to my life, to any problems. And I think this is so great that we're looking, and you in ARC looking at the problems with a hope to find a good solution where we can adapt, but also together where we cooperate. Bring the solution. But in order to bring the solution, it's not only needed to talk about it, but actually the action.
Yeah.
And when we speak of action, it's also about leadership, because leadership is full of action. And I see many people of values that are great on servanthood. And but we know this term servant leaders.
Right.
And in politics, I think we need to bring back the politics back to where it needs to be. It's serving the people who give you the mandate, who give you send you and represent to represent them. So you need to be on one hand servant, but on the other hand leader at the same time. And that's where I kind of be missing. You know, you see people in politics now who kind of like themselves. They like the attention of people, but they don't have the vision. And we need people with vision and who are willing to sacrifice for walking toward the vision to be in this place. And that's what's leadership about. That you actually are willing to sacrifice many things in your life in order to bring the people to the vision that is vision of all the people that surround you. So that's what I see very important. And the last thing I say about the politics, you know, especially in Slovakia, they say politics is dirty. Don't go there. You are too good person to go to politics. Well, to me, politics is the most important basically segment of the society, because those people decide many things how the society will develop in our future. So you need to have people of values there, because if not, that they will be deciding about you, and you can only just live to it. So therefore, I think it's important, even though now it might be dirty, for people with values to come in so they can change the environment. Not to leave it and empty it out, but actually go in. And I always encourage people of values that please join, come into politics, and also into the public service and state service, because these places need people who are resilient, but who have the vision and want to serve the people.
I love that you finished on serve the people and this concept of servant leadership. It's something we can take for granted, but I know, you know, particularly in English-speaking countries, it's baked into the very language of the highest level of government. The Prime Minister, the ministers of state. This term is literally to minister to the people as a servant of the people, and yet it feels like we're living through a moment where we're not seeing those leaders of character and sacrifice and responsibility necessarily emerging, and we have ended up in these quite fractious times where we do have quite divided peoples across the Western world. In your experience, how How important is character to leadership, and why do you think we maybe haven't seen those leaders of character emerging in some of our nations?
Well, I would say it's crucial.
Yeah.
And I tell you why, because the politics is the place of power.
Mm.
And if you start to meet with power and actually having the power, it can totally change yourself and mislead you because you start to enjoy to have the power and you can decide. And if your character is not trained enough, then you become almost like a dictator or authoritarian leader or leader that likes to command people, not really leading with servant heart, but more like commanding the people. And it's very tempting. And you are tempted like every day, every moment, because everybody goes like, "Oh, Mr. Prime Minister, what do you think? What do you say?" etc.
So, and it appeals to your vanity as well, doesn't it? And your own hubris, and you start to believe what people are saying about you.
Absolutely. And so that's why it's so important to have a strong character. But by itself, it's not enough. You need to have also safety net, I would say. People around you who have the same values, who can show you your blind spot.
Yeah.
So that's why the community aspect of living, it's so important, because they will help you to be rooted and not go astray, So that's why I think the character is very, very important. And it's good that it's trained before you step into politics, that you experience also failures, that you experience bad times, dark valleys, etc. And you learn how to overcome that, how to not lose your sight, your vision, and your compass, and still follow and be rooted in your values. That's so important.
I love how you linked values and the need for a community around you, and that's really what ARC is trying to do: is build an invitational community of people of character who live in relationship with one another, that can challenge each other, that can support each other through some of those more difficult, darkest valleys that you mentioned, but also collaborate and work together in order to achieve greater kind of civilizational aims. I would love to know, you talked earlier about, you being a Christian, a follower of Jesus Christ, and it's not often that you'll hear a former Prime Minister speak in the language of the Spirit. How have you found that relationship between your personal faith and then also your call to leadership of your country? And has that been something that's difficult, or something that actually you found real affirmation and support building around that?
Well, I would say it kind of came naturally, and when I converted and I started to follow and build relationship with Jesus Christ, I started to get to know people of the same kind, the Christians, right? And I started to be part of a community, big fellowship in Slovakia, Catholic fellowship, and that's where basically I was invited to help in other things, and I grew kind of in the leadership positions. And then in 2014, I got an invitation to think about and consider running for an MP, a member of parliament, in 2016. So I was thinking about it, praying for it, speaking to my wife, asking my friends and the leaders in the church, like, what they think. And then I decided, okay, I'll go for it. So this is how it came. And as I said, it's kind of natural. If you have the heart of sacrifice and love, then you freely commit to do good for others, and then you serve and minister, basically, as you say. And that's why it's so important that in politics, and not just in politics, any sphere of influence, we should bring back the value of why it's so good, because it's not just, a sacrifice so I can be honored. It's wherever you do something for the others, you actually benefit the most.
Yeah.
First of all, it transforms yourselves, but also you bring added value to the whole community that you will consume at the end of the day as well. You don't do it for yourself, but you will be the participant of the benefits. So that's so important. But I think one more thing we didn't discuss, and I think it's important to mention, is this culture of respect. And with the digital era, with kind of open-mindedness, we kind of lost certain moral barriers. What's good and what's allowed. Like St. Paul, Apostle Paul, he said, like, I can do anything I want, but not everything is good for me. and that's where the respect comes in. I was just talking to my 13-year-old son, and he asked me like, "Dad, what is the meaning of respect? Could you explain that to me a little more?"
You've got a very deep son.
Yes, exactly. And he was like, "Is it just being formal to somebody?"
Yeah.
I said, "It's all about attitude. It's about the way you think about other people. Whether you think you are better than them, you are above, or you actually honor them. You look at their human dignity. Whether you have you are humble, are you also loving?
Yeah.
That's very important. Love doesn't mean that you allow everybody to do anything they want.
Yeah.
It means that you care for the people. And again, as Apostle Paul said, you do things that you can do anything, but not everything is good for you. And we see it in everyday's life, in our families and everywhere. So we need to bring this culture of respect, which is not easy, because now courage is kind of shown like, okay, that's the best value to live with. But courage without respect brings you kind of to anarchy and to aggression and violence, and that's not good.
You mentioned your son when you were speaking just then, and your wife earlier about consulting her before making that decision to run. How did you balance family life with servant leadership, sacrificial love for your country, and what were some of the challenges and the sacrifices they had to make? But then also, were there moments where you had to say no because your wife and your children were so important to you as well? And I'd love if you could unpack that a bit.
Yeah, well, to us it was a change, but it wasn't such a dramatic change, because as I said, ever since I became a follower of Jesus, I started to be active in our community. And actually my wife as well, she's ministering at the children's ministry, etc. Our kids, we try to involve them as well. So we kind of living the lifestyle of living among the people, helping the people, serving the people, and they help us with the kids and we need, etc. So it's kind of this community life that you live. And that's why when you spend so much time with serving others and you go to politics, in politics, I think, yeah, it consumes you even more. So we were kind of trained for it.
Yeah.
And it's a very important, how do you then use your time for the family? I must say the last 3 years that I was in the government was very special, because Slovakia, as the rest of the world, went through serious crises like COVID and energy crisis, inflation. We are a neighboring country to Ukraine, so the war hit us very, very strongly. So it consumed my whole life. I mean, the whole time I was 15 hours a day at work, and weekends many times on the phone and also at work. So it was it was very challenging. But now I'm trying to catch up and make it up.
You talk about some of those challenges towards the back end of your government, and I think one of the real reasons that we felt that ARC was so important in this season was it does feel like we're at a civilizational moment, one of those moments where the decisions we make now will really decide whether or not our civilization continues to thrive or whether it begins to taper off and decline, and maybe some concern about some of the ways and the principles that have been built into the current decision makers and their thinking. I'd love to hear from you. What's your analysis of this civilizational moment? Do you think we are at a serious point in the West and in Europe, and what do you think some of the challenges and fruits are?
Well, I'm very glad you opened this topic. You know, I hear many messages that cause fear in people.
Yeah.
So like, okay, guys, we're I wouldn't say they say like we are lost, but it's really miserable. The situation is not good, and they see pessimistic scenarios. But when they ask me what's the future gonna be, I say the future is gonna be the way we make it. Every day, as you said, every day is the moment we can decide what's the future gonna be, and we have to think that way. If we realize that it's up to me, up to every individual, because sometimes we look for the savior. The savior was already here times years ago, and he saved us. He defeated the death, right? So we should not look, because when he comes the second time, then heaven will come.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, it's up to us to decide what's the future gonna be, and it can be good. Of course, the situation, as I said, there's so much fear, but we need to bring hope. And that's why I like the ARC, that they say it's a better story. We have a better story. We can build a better story. So the connection, the realization of the fact that I can change the future in a positive way, It's that's what I like about ARC, and I would like to, and that's what I do. And I would like to also now encourage people who will watch this video to think of them that they can be the leaders in their environment. They are just because they say, I believe in a better story, and I'm gonna work on it. I'm gonna put my effort into it every single moment. You know, it starts with a smile. It starts like, hey, how are you? You're looking good, you know? And you can do it. Just go for it, and persevere, you know? So these are the little things you can do. But then also, as I said, we need to look at the spheres of influence. And if we bring the values, and we basically return to the values, that's what we need to do, because the values were here. I mean, there's so much lessons learned in the history. Look, after the Second War, or as the European Union started, Konrad Adenauer, Robert Schuman, and de Gasperi met together, and they had this vision of, we can cooperate. We don't have to fight each other. We can think what we can help each other with. And that brought the idea of European Union, and that brought peace into Europe.
Yeah.
So we have to learn from that. And if we keep these values of helping, serving, not kind of trying to benefit from you, but help you, because I know that's going to benefit me as well. That's the change of the attitude. So I think we are at the moment of innovation mentality.
Yeah.
And again, that's what I think Roman 12 say, that we have to renew ourselves through a change of the thinking. So it's the innovation mentality. That's what we need to look at, and I think that's what ARC is bringing to the people who follow it.
It's one of the things that ARC is trying to do in innovating thinking is this idea that you actually need lots of different people on the pitch who have different skill sets in order to bring about change, in order to renew a culture. So you need the artists who can cast a vision. You need the business leaders who can innovate and have that entrepreneurial spirit that generates new prosperity. You need the legislators who can enact legislation. I'd love to know, in your experience, how important to your leadership was it to be able to collaborate across sector? And do you see that as something that is happening enough in our cultures and really a whole of society approach to some of our challenges as opposed to just a political one?
It's actually happening very little.
Yeah.
Because we are in a polarized society. In the Western world, I would say. I see it everywhere, in each country. It's present in Slovakia, it's present in the United States, it's present in Germany, everywhere.
Yeah.
Which is not good. It's good for the politics, because if you want to build a political capital, it's great if you keep your crowd polarized and antagonistic to others, because then they're close to you.
Yeah.
But strategically, long term, it's like shooting yourself in your foot.
Yeah.
And I saw it very much. You know, when the COVID hit, I was Minister of Finance, and the response of the European Union was that the countries need to develop recovery and resilience plans. So, and for Slovakia, it meant that we had to do a lot of reform in order to be able to use the European money for the investments.
Yeah.
In order to do a reform in a good way, you need to incorporate people from the areas that it's going to influence it, like the business, education, healthcare, environment, etc.
Yeah.
So I invited the best experts to work on this plan. It took us 10 months to put together. But because we had this mindset, and when they asked me, okay, so what's going to be the main principle that we're going to choose the solutions for the plan? I said, there's going to be just one principle, best for Slovakia.
Yeah.
It must be best for the whole nation, not just for one group. Because the educators, they might say, this is the best for us, but it could harm other sectors. I said, guys, we need to look the holistic approach. So when we were able to manage it, and it was evaluated one of the best recovery plans in the whole European Union.
Yeah.
So, and then we started to accomplish it. In order to implement, again, you need those stakeholders to be part of the implementation.
Yeah.
Which is not always easy. It's a lot of discussion. But if you have the spirit of cooperation and working toward a better good, then it's feasible. And actually, I don't know whether you know, but this is kind of like a joke or a story that I heard one day, that what's the difference between heaven and hell? Well, it's the place, when you go to hell, you see these people, there's this big pot with wonderful food. And you have these long spoons. But the spoon is longer than your arm. So if you take the food and you want to put it in your mouth, it's not going to work because the spoon is here. So you cannot do it. So everybody in hell was starving, even though they had this great food in front of it. And then you went to heaven and you saw the people were happy, but they had the same spot, the same pot of this wonderful food in front of them, but they were happy and laughing and they weren't starving. And you know why? Because they were feeding each other. They realized I cannot only feed myself, but I can feed you. And that's the difference, you know, it's the mindset. If I look at myself, at the end of the day, I might be not happy.
Yeah.
But if I look at you and invest in you, eventually the investment will return.
I love that concept of feeding each other and cooperating. Within the European Union, within Europe more broadly, do you see the future as one of continued cooperation, or do you see internal polarization within countries beginning to fracture that? And what's your kind of analysis of the state of Europe at the
Well,
moment?
I'll tell you a couple examples just so you understand how the circumstances can change the atmosphere. When during the COVID and also during the energy crisis and the war in Ukraine, I could see many leaders, you know, you come there, you represent your country. So you come with your priorities around this big table of prime ministers and presidents. And you go like, okay, guys, these are my priorities and must be the priorities. But you're at the table with other people who have their own priorities. So how do you make the compromise? And many times it wasn't possible.
Yeah.
But when the war started, we all felt like, okay, this is bigger than us.
Right.
And I saw many times the leaders, they would say, okay, guys, I came with 10 priorities, but for the sake of unity, I give up my priority because the unity actually benefits us all.
Yeah.
We all benefit from the unity. So, and that's the concept. So yes, if there is not a real need, then it's very difficult to find a solution. But if there is a real need, then you find solution quickly if the people realize that that's the need. So sometimes we look for solutions that we don't have the real need for. And therefore, it's so important to discern what's real need and then bring the solutions to. And there I see it's a challenge. And people of values, I think, are better capable of bringing unity than people who don't have the values, because they like rather polarization and benefit out of the polarization. But people who have values, they're gonna bring unity because they know what's the unity gonna bring. And unity doesn't mean that we all think the same way. It means that despite we think different way, we're capable to agree on something that and then follow the agreement.
That reminds me, there's a quote that's I've seen attributed to Wilberforce, and I've seen attributed to so many different thinkers that who knows who actually said it, but it was, in all things essential, unity, in all things non-essential, diversity, and in all things, charity. And it strikes me that that's that kind of balance that you've been talking through.
Proven.
Yeah.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel, right?
Yeah. Edward, I'd really just love to close on what gives you hope in the future, and what motivates you to keep doing the work that you're doing, and what does job done look like? When do you feel, okay, I've achieved everything the Lord set me out to do? I can go home and watch some TV and put the feet up.
Well, I think we can watch the TV as a relax whenever we have the time for it. But I don't think there is such time that in life that you will say, okay, everything is done or doesn't need me anymore. So that's not the way I look at it. Actually, I have a friend. He's over 85, and he loves to read Bible. And he said one day, you know what, guys? I read the Bible like 20 times, and I never found a word retirement there. So he says, I'm never gonna retire. I'm always gonna be active. But yeah, so when I look at the activity, I think it's as we're speaking, you know, just being there and living an active life and always trying to improve the world. And I think now the challenge is to return the values. I see that the morale is kind of falling. The people, I think we need to return to the fact, like, what does it mean to love person? Because there's a lot of respect. There's also some boundaries, some rules that we need to apply. So this is really important to live in our lives. And whenever we implement it in any area, then we'll be better off. So yeah, that's the way I see it.
Edward, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for the invitation. God bless you.
Thank you.